This episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear.com is the spot where Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com, the best and most affordable gear for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, all of the professional and college sports teams in South Florida. Caneswear.com has you covered. If you're in South Florida, you can visit the storefront at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. They ship internationally as well. So Caneswear.com, make it the place. It's the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. And don't forget about Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk for additional Miami Dolphins content. You get extra access to our private Discord server. You get bonus podcasts covering the Miami Dolphins. You get off-topic content as well. We have live watch-alongs. We have retro rewatches where we watch old games and talk about them. We do off-topic shows. We have prizes, contests, all kinds of exclusive access only for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So join us, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Head on over to Dolphins Talk Extra at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. And now, on with the show.
Hello, Dolphins Talk fans, and welcome to another episode. My name is Marissa Marino, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Steve Wyche, NFL Network's Chief National Reporter. You can follow him on Twitter at Wyche, that's WYCHE 89. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Marissa? Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you for being here. We were just talking about it. It's great that you're here. You were just at the Thursday night football game last night on the sidelines talking to people after the game. So you're a busy man.
Yeah, look, it's what I do, and I'm very fortunate to do it. Trust me, every day I wake up and say, hey, 10 billion people want my job. So every opportunity I have a chance to go do it, I feel fortunate and try and do my best.
Well, we appreciate your work in doing that. And before we get into it, wanted to mention that NFL Network is actually going to be airing the Vikings-Browns this Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern from London. It's exclusively on NFL Network and available to stream across devices with NFL Plus. Make sure you wake up early and you catch that game and get your coffee in you and be ready to go.
There you go, the Carson Wentz, Dylan Gabriel Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm so excited for that. It makes me get up earlier and not stay in bed all day. So that's a beautiful thing.
There we go.
All right. So we have lots of Dolphins football. So let's just get right into it. The biggest thing being, of course, what happened last week with the loss of Tyreek Hill. Super sad. Luckily, though, he seems to be doing great, in good spirits. Everything seems to have gone well. But how do you think this injury will affect the Dolphins on the field? And do you believe this will be a challenge for Mike McDaniel to change his offensive philosophy now to be less dependent on the big catches and on the passing game?
Well, to answer the back part of that question first, yes, it's going to change the philosophy. Mm-hmm. I mean, as someone who's covered the NFL broadly for years, whoever plays against Tyreek Hill, they spend that week game planning for his speed, for his explosive play potential. So now you've got that in Jalen Waddle, but that's not how he's used. Jalen's more of the possession type guy who can catch it, still has the speed to make a big play. So maybe Jalen Waddle is deployed more as that deep threat in addition to what he does underneath. You can't play every game death by paper cut, right? You have to have explosive plays in today's NFL because it's a game of geometry. It's a game of open space, angles, and playmakers making plays. So losing Tyreek is significant. And so you have to wonder how Mike McDaniel is going to adjust. I think we saw some things the last couple of weeks. They got, well, at least last week, especially getting the run game going, getting Etienne involved in the quick passing game. And Darren Waller. I think Darren Waller coming on board is going to be a significant part of that change. Because having a tight end in this offense, something Mike McDaniel in this version of offense doesn't really use a lot, he's going to have to use a lot now.
Absolutely. We know Mike McDaniel loves those end zone fade routes, and now he actually has a tall tight end that can run those for him. So Okay, so the Dolphins got their very first win of the season on Monday, which brought the temperature down a little bit and a little less noise with Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, all the hot seat conversation. We know that winning cures all. But how much winning do you believe Miami has to do for Greer and McDaniel to keep their jobs? And I'll say that, week 1 through 3 weren't good. Guys this past offseason, we know, have wanted out of Miami, didn't respect the head coach, coming in late, under 500, missed the playoffs last year. Obviously, this year off to a bad start. I mean, how many wins do you think this team needs to try to acquire for these two gentlemen to have job security beyond 2025?
I think it's tough to put a win total on it, but I think it's how it goes, right? Let's say they win 8 games, but there's progress in certain areas. Because the issue right now for the Dolphins primarily is on defense. Mm-hmm. And that's where the injuries have just absolutely sidetracked this team. At the same time, coming into the season, they knew the secondary was decimated and didn't do much to build it back. You trade away a stud like Jalen Ramsey, who didn't want to be here, right? You lose some veteran players and don't replace them with guys who are contributing right away. That's an issue. Mm. So, I mean, they knew where some of the weak spots were, and they're getting exploited. Their defense is getting gashed week after week, even in the run game. And so, these are things, if that tightens up, if that gets better, okay, they say, okay, we're making progress. We're headed in the right direction, because the offense, for as much as people want to say things about it, they put points on the board. Mm-hmm. They have shown some semblance of what they do with the timing and things like that. They've got to get the run game going, and that's a mesh of the offensive line and the running backs and everything. But if what we saw Monday night starts to translate, I think that's going to happen. So again, it's hard to put a win total on it, but let's say the Bills win the division, which we're all expecting. If they finish 6 games back, then it's in trouble. If there's some of the locker room chaos or some of the things we're hearing continues, then they've got to start all over. But, we just see these teams that have this revolving door of coaches. And there's a reason why they're always hiring coaches, because they're always losing. And there's just no stability in how they operate. And that's why certain teams are whom they are. So we'll just see how it plays out. Again, to put a certain win total on it is tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we do have the coaching stability, and we clearly have the GM stability with Chris Greer. But then we also have the stability of 25 years without a playoff win. So that is definitely hard as a Dolphin fan to swallow. All right, so one of the main guys that people talk about all the time, as you know, is Tua.
Yep.
The first 3 games were a little rocky. Versus the Jets, he definitely was better. He was recently in like a media kerfuffle, is what I would call it, with Cam Newton last week. This is year 6 for Tua. What are your thoughts on him as a player? And do you think he is a quarterback who can lead a team? Particularly, do you think he is able to develop into the franchise quarterback that this team really needs?
Yes. I mean, to answer your last question, yes. I mean, he's put up numbers in this offense. He's done some very positive things in this offense. If you're expecting him to be Patrick Mahomes, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes is a different body type, different type of player, a scrambler when he has to be. Tua is more of, again, I won't say system specific, because good quarterbacks are always system specific. They function well in a particular system they have with their head coach. But he throws the ball on time. He doesn't have the rocket arm of a Justin Herbert, but he's got a good enough NFL arm. He's showing some leadership in a certain way. That's where we've seen him kind of come out of his shell, such as the spicy comments that he got into with Cam Newton. Some of the things he said about Tyreek Hill. Tua wouldn't have said that 2 or 3 years ago. It's just always a question with his availability, his durability, and what's around him. I mean, I honestly have to say, with some of the offensive lines he's had to play with because of the injuries, what quarterback necessarily could succeed? With having to score 30 points a game because the defense hasn't necessarily shown up, mainly because of injuries, mind you. It's tough. But I think Tua, he's one of those guys, if he went to another team, if he went to the Niners, if he went to the Vikings or something like that, in that Mike McDaniel kind of system that he kind of sprang from, he'd be just fine in a lot of other teams. So I think he's not the biggest issue. He makes the money, yes. but he's not the biggest issue with some of the inconsistencies that we've seen with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and Tom Brady actually put out a video recently where he was talking about, quarterback success, and looking back, you see the offensive line is where you can really look at, and the quarterbacks that have had success, the offensive lines that have gone with that. And as you said, ours has been badly beaten and bruised as of the past few years. So definitely something to be said for that. So one of the bright spots for this Miami Dolphins team this season, and you talked about this run game, is Devon Achane.
Mm-hmm.
This is year 3 for him. I'm such a huge fan of his. He shows up every game with such grit and passion. After this year, he's heading into year 4. He will most likely want an extension and some financial security to go along with that. What kind of deal do you think he's looking at with his next contract with the pace he is on? Do we think like maybe similar to James Cook, who just got the 4-year, $48 million, $30 million guaranteed, possibly something bigger? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm sure he wants something in that range. I mean, he's got to produce like James Cook. I mean, James Cook is a very special player.
Yes.
So, and it all depends on how people value him. Like, let's say Mike McDaniel, is retained as head coach and everybody's retained. So let's start there. And they value him in that regard. Do they have to pay him that type of money? Not necessarily. This is what, unfortunately, the franchise tag really hampers running backs, because teams like to put that on the players and say, okay, we'll get 5 years out of them, then we'll move on to the next one, because that's a position where guys can step in. But I would think, tell me a player who doesn't want contract stability in the biggest numbers possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would think he just wants to go out and continue. If he could get something like a James Cook, that's great. But if Mike McDaniel moves on, the next coach who comes in might not value Devon Achane and what they want to do offensively like Mike McDaniel does. So it all depends on what the value is. I think he is somebody who's going to have a nice career in the NFL. Running backs, it's just always so iffy on how much they get paid. We saw Saquon and Derrick Henry and some of these guys do big things. We've seen younger players like Jonathan Taylor and some of these guys get these big contracts and do big things. I think Devon Achane is someone who could do big things in this league. But do the people who sign the checks value him in their scheme as much? So that's kind of a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Hopefully they do. I value him, but I'm not the one signing the checks at the end of the day. So, okay, so we talked about this defense, and I think we'd be remiss to not mention Anthony Weaver, obviously the Dolphins defensive coordinator. He was a really hot name last season in the hiring cycle. The Bears and Saints were considering him.
Falcons.
Right now. Yeah.
Yep.
And yes. So right now the Dolphins defense is one of the worst in the league. I mean, putting it, being honest, part of it is the players he has. Part of it is scheme and execution. If this Dolphins defense doesn't improve, do you think that will hurt Weaver's chance at landing a head coaching job next offseason if that's something he's looking to pursue?
Yes. I mean, that's just what happens. I mean, we could just go for the past 40 years. You could have the hot candidate and all of a sudden their team loses, or their side of the ball doesn't play well. Maybe it's not the fault of their own. Maybe it's because of injuries, or they're trying to get young players who don't develop the way that they thought they were going to develop. You'll never hear that coach's name in a cycle again. I mean, I've seen so many coaches just go through the hiring process. We really like him. We wanted to go in a different direction, hire an offensive coach, whatever. Then that guy goes, his team just doesn't perform. Never to be interviewed again for a head coaching job. So yes, that's absolutely, if this defense doesn't improve, Anthony Weaver Star is not going to be what it was going the last 2 years in the coaching hiring cycle.
Yeah, it's rough. It's a rough pill to swallow.
It's the nature of the business.
Yeah, it truly is. Well, we know that the Dolphins are playing the Panthers this weekend. Yep. Carolina is a really weird team to get a feel on. 1 week they're shutting out Atlanta. The next they're struggling versus the Patriots. How do you see this game playing out, and what are your thoughts on the state of the Panthers organization?
Yeah, the Panthers, Jekyll and Hyde, because we saw them put that 30-0 spot on the Falcons, but otherwise their defense has been getting tagged. I mean, I know they were bad last year. They've been getting up a ton of points in the 3 other games. Miami should continue that trend against them. I mean, Achane should have a good game. I would expect Waddle and Waller to do their thing as well. The state of the Panthers is interesting
Hmm.
because they haven't gotten better in so many areas. Now they had a significant personnel overhaul to do some things. When they gave up all the pieces to trade for Bryce Young, it hurt them. The wide receiver spot looks like Teteroa McMillan's going to be a heck of a player, but you don't know about Xavier Legette. The other receiver, I think he's going to be a pretty good player, but again, we'll see. Patience tends not to be an upheld virtue by teams that struggle. We talked earlier about these teams that are always in the cycle every 3 or 4 years hiring coaches because they're impatient. They don't let things take hold. Will ownership do that? They seem to like Dan Morgan, the GM. They seem to like Dave Canales. Bryce Young's growth and development is a huge part of that because he's a guy who's been benched, came back and looked good. He's been inconsistent this year, but they're still missing so many pieces, even on both sides of the ball, offensive line, the key issues. On defense, man, they've got a long way to go. I'll put it this way, if Miami does not win, I don't think they have to win convincingly, but to play well and win this game, all those cries you heard going into last week's game, they're going to come back with the volume on 11.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those games. I was listening to Teron Armstead on his show, The Set, last night, and he was saying, like, they need to win this game and at least win it by a little bit. I mean, if not, this is going to be rough road that we have to trek here for the next games. So, and I don't know what of this question you can answer, and maybe nothing at all, but I have to ask it. Brian Flores, he's had this action lawsuit against the NFL and 3 teams. I know recently lawyers were upset that the arbitration case hasn't seemed to be moving quickly enough. Do we have any possible time frame on when this may come to a conclusion? And are you surprised at all that there hasn't been a settlement with this? Dolphin fans are always staying up on Brian Flores, so I have to ask the question.
Yeah, I am kind of surprised there hasn't been some type of conclusion to this. Because Brian Flores is still getting interviewed for head coaching jobs. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And there are some other coaches involved with the Steve Wilkes, the DC for the Jets and a few others. So the NFL is trying to work through this with the least amount of damage, that can be applied. And, the processes, like you said, with the arbitration, things like that have to go on. So I think the NFL labor laws supersede some of the other laws in this country. So we'll see. It is dragged out. It has been really behind the scenes. But I have no idea. I've covered the NFL for more than 20 years, and I've seen some of these lawsuits just go away. I've seen some of them kind of linger with no resolution. This is one, again, it's taken some time, and I'm sure the league and some people wanted to take as much time as possible. So there's other issues that we're looking here and not paying as much attention to that one.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, going around the league for just a quick second, what is more surprising to you? The Ravens at 1-3 or the Colts and Jags at 3-1?
Ooh, great question. I would probably say the Colts and Jags at 3-1 because the Ravens schedule was brutal out of the gate. Right. The thing is, they don't look great. And they've got a bunch of injuries. Now you're like, man, this game against Houston this weekend is going to be a challenge for them. Although Houston's another surprising team, how they have just struggled offensively after making the change with their offensive staff. But the Jaguars and Colts at 3-1, because in terms of the Colts, I've always believed that Shane Steichen is a heck of a coach, right? Gardner Minshew almost got them into the playoffs. We saw a couple years ago when they got into the playoffs with Shane Steichen. Great coach. Clearly the issue was the quarterback because now Daniel Jones is playing. They've got players on defense who are really good. Leatu Latu is going to be a superstar at the defensive end. DeForest Buckner, we know how good he is. So, but the fact that they're 3-1 with Daniel Jones leading it, maybe it wasn't Daniel Jones. Maybe we're seeing this again with guys like Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Maybe now Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield. So we'll see. But the Jaguars, I really like this because, they still haven't taken hold in terms of, okay, are they a legit 3-1 or are they just making the plays enough to be 3-1? But they've got talent on defense. They've always, those defensive ends, Trayvon Walker, who's a little nicked up, and Josh Hines Allen are studs. But offensively, they're doing just enough. They're getting special teams plays. And when you see these teams kind of emerge every year that you're not expecting, It's little things like that, and winning close games and winning them with a special teams return or a fumble recovery or something. These are the little things that get them rolling. And so I'm looking at both of these teams saying, if they continue this, like every year, was it 4 teams are in the playoffs that we didn't expect? These could be 2 of them.
Yeah, when we played the Colts, I was like, man, either the Dolphins are making Daniel Jones look like the next coming of Joe Montana, or actually he's like actually that much better than I thought he was. And then going into the other games, I'm like, he's just a little bit better than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And who would have thought the Ravens and the Dolphins would be both have the same record? I would have never had that on my bingo card going into this year. All right. So before we wrap up, we do a very fun thing at Dolphins Talk with all of our guests called the Dolphins Talk Speed Round. 5 questions with Steve Wyche. Fun, lighthearted, lightning style questions that we'd love to ask you if you are ready to rock and roll.
Let's go.
All right. Question 1. What is your favorite NFL stadium?
Favorite NFL stadium would probably be SoFi. It is awesome, but Lambeau Field is the bucket list experience for any NFL fan.
Yeah, and have you done the Lambeau Leap at all?
That's not going to happen.
Okay.
I'm risk averse. I do not want to pop an Achilles.
There you go. More fun event to cover, the Super Bowl or draft weekend?
Super Bowl, without a doubt. We're actually seeing people play a game, a lot of things going on, not just young folks walking across the stage hugging Roger Goodell.
Yeah, fair enough. What is your favorite late night snack?
Favorite late night snack?
Yes.
Can it be a beverage?
Sure.
Oh no, I'm a wine guy. I like to sip a little wine.
Okay.
And when it comes to eating, I'm a snacker, so it's probably like some trail mix type stuff.
Okay, with like chocolate sprinkle trail mix or just like the generic regular?
Oh no, it's got to be like the monster mix. You ever go to Target? It's got like the M&Ms,
like the M&Ms and everything.
The M&Ms and like the Reese's Pieces to go in with all the nuts and stuff like that.
Because you feel like somewhat healthy, but not like full. It's like it's balance.
Oh no, I will be up doing the 5K on the elliptical the next morning after I go there.
There you have it. What was your favorite team growing up? And just a 2-parter to that, did you have a favorite player as a kid?
Favorite football team, since I spent the first 9 years of my life, or 8 years of my life in Minneapolis, was the Vikings.
Okay.
Loved the Vikings. And my favorite player growing up, it's always split, right? Walter Payton, absolutely. But the Vikings had a running back who's the most overlooked great player because of his short career, named Chuck Foreman, number 44, the spin doctor. Go back and watch highlights of him. He was a bigger Reggie Bush before there was one, and he played collegiately at the U.
We love that. Okay.
There you go.
Everyone out there in Dolphins Talk Nation listening, make sure you look him up. All right. And final question, Steve. Outside of football, what is your favorite sport to watch?
It's wild. Years ago, I would have said the NBA because I used to cover the NBA. I covered the Heat and the Wizards, but I am really an English Premier League soccer guy as well. I have, and that's kind of like my new jam. Like the past couple years, I'm an Arsenal guy. But the skill that they play with and everything, I get up early. I live in LA, so sometimes I'm up at 5 and 6 o'clock, watching some Arsenal games and stuff. But yeah, that's my new jam. Still probably is the NBA when it comes to the playoffs. I spend a lot of time watching that, but I'm pretty hooked on the EPL.
Okay. I haven't gotten into that yet, but NBA for sure, especially when the Heat was on their tear for many years. What a joy to watch. Nothing
like I was on the first edition of that back when Pat Riley was coaching, Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning and Jamal Mashburn. I covered those teams.
I had no idea.
Did you know that I used to cover the Dolphins as a Miami Herald reporter?
Should I lie and say that? Yeah, I knew that.
Totally. The Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson era. I was down there with Marino's last few years and, a lot of great players, Richmond Webb.
Yes.
Guys. Yeah, Zach Thomas. I was there when my surreal Dolphins moment. Like I was covering Jimmy Johnson's first year with the Dolphins when they drafted Zach Thomas in the 5th round. Daryl Gardner was Jimmy's first round pick, a defensive tackle out of Baylor. And then when Zach went to Hall of Fame a couple years ago, I'm part of the Door Knock show. So me and Jimmy and, the whole ruse that was set up to inform him. It was the most heartwarming thing I've ever had to experience. In my journalistic career, the way we set it up, where Zach came in the house and Jimmy was at the top of the
I
stairs.
saw the whole thing. Yeah.
But it was a total full circle moment. I mean, that's what's kind of cool about doing what I do. Like, I was there when Zach got drafted, a 5th round draft pick. Nobody thought was going to make the team. Next thing you know, he replaces Jack Del Rio at middle linebacker and becomes this great, great player. And then just to see him be justly honored getting that gold jacket was something special.
That's so cool. Yeah, we obviously, I mean, just such a fans just obviously love him. And Richmond Webb, I had him on the show about a month and a half ago, and fans were still pushing for him to get in that Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, but man, I wish that man would get his gold jacket. I think it's so well deserved. So we're still pushing for it. Well, we appreciate your time so much. I know you're such a busy guy. Again, everybody, Steve Wyche, NFL Network Chief National Reporter. Make sure you follow him on Twitter for all the greatest at Wyche89. Mr. Wyche, thank you again so much for your time. Any parting words for Dolphin fans out there listening?
First off, call me Steve.
Steve, that's my dad's name. It's easy to remember.
And I appreciate you. Having me on. I mean, the parting words are just kind of like Dolphin fans. I've been there. I know the hopes for you guys. I know the hopes are always springs eternal. You're a great group of fans. Keep your fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. There you
That's right.
go. Well, we thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment about how much you enjoyed the show. We hope that everybody has a great rest of their day, and fins up.